Okay, so here we go. So we have Ada coming around the corner, and a couple of Tuesdays until Purim, believe it or not. So a few weeks ago, we learned a little bit when it was Purim Katan, learned a little bit about that to get into the atmosphere, the feeling. Then we did a few weeks on Choshen Mishpat, Hilchos Dayanim, which is fascinating. And I think what we learned, I hope what everyone learned from there is that Hilchot Dayanim and Choshen Mishpat, the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat, is not only for judges, it's every one of us. We all judge. So that's the technical laws of judging in a base thing. But we're all judges, and many of halachot over there I tried to show applies to all of us very, very often. And we explain a little bit about how the court system works, smicha, what kind of basing cases exist today. I thought today and next couple of weeks we'll get into the Purim spirit. And there is a fascinating halacha here. And it proves to be one of the most controversial halachas of the century, believe it or not, in a very innocuous place. Taf Reish Pei Hey, say the Arba Pashios, the 4 Pashios that we're going to have over the next few weeks. But that's innocent. Rosh Chodesh Adar, Hasamuch, Lenisan, Shechalios B'Shabbos, we do Shkalim. And then it gets into the second Shabbos, we do Zachor. The third Shabbos, we do Para, right? And then the next Shabbos, we do HaChodesh. Okay, doesn't sound like such a controversy. I think we can all manage that. We can have a whole bunch of Jews in the room talking about that without fighting. Then, so that sounds easy enough. And then he gets into the famous halacha that some say Pasha Zohar is a mitzvah, midoraisa. Yeah. And then he gets into halacha Tafresh Pei Vav Tanis Esther. We fast. We mentioned a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the big chiddush is 2 Tanis Esthers. The Tanis that we all know, the day before Purim, and then another mitzvah Tanis Esther, a 3-day fast to remember her 3 days of fasting. So interesting how we didn't take that minhag upon ourselves. Just can't figure that one out. It's always interesting to know which minhagim fly and which minhagim are just totally ignored. I wouldn't use the criteria, well, whatever's hard we'll ignore, and whatever's easy we're going to do. It's not the case. We could sometimes have very hard, challenging things that people embrace. It's not to do with hard or easy as much as appealing. Certain things just have become very appealing to people, hard or not, nothing to do with anything. So it's a very interesting study, the popularity of various minhag. Right now, in so much of the Hasidim a few hundred years ago started their minhagim when they came about, and they all have payas. Then the yeshivish world, so many of them have a different kind, payas behind the ear. The Merkaz Rav Kook world now, Dati Lami now, are very big on payas, right? So it's just fascinating. It's not an easy thing, not hard. It just is. So I'm not putting it down or praising it. It's just fascinating to explore what minhagim make it or become popular and which ones sort of just fall to the side. Okay, that's a separate. Very good. So the fast would be Pesach, but then we don't want to do the Nisan. So it was done Monday, Thursday, Monday after Purim. But whoever heard of such a thing? No one does. Anyways, so no one that I know does it. If you ever meet anyone that says, yeah, I do Bahab. I do Monday, Thursday, Monday after the month of Tishrei. Many people do that. They may not fast, but they'll say special slichos. I do Monday, Thursday, Monday after Sukkot, after Sukkot and after Pesach. And if you ever find anyone who says, yeah, I do Monday, Thursday after Purim also. Very interesting. Either way, back to over here. So Tafresh Pei Vav, it's fine. Nothing too controversial, except for a Mishnah Berurah, which at first glance, okay, it's nice, sweet, nechmad. Then you're going to think about it, and you're going to have that light bulb like, oh my gosh, what are the implications of this Mishnah Berurah? So I'm going to read it now. So he says, there's a minhag to fast. Yesh mit'anim shlosha yamim. There are those that fast for 3 days. Zecher l'tanis Esther. So the Mishnah Berurah says, Perish, sheni v'chameshi v'sheni achar Purim. Monday, Thursday, Monday after Purim. Very interesting. So it would have been in Purim, in Nisa, but we didn't want to do it then. So therefore, we do it at this point. But we're not going to focus on that, especially because it's not really practice. So we're going to focus on the rest of Mishnah Berurah. Mishnechnas Ada Marbin B'Simcha. When Ada starts, we begin with Simcha. We have a lot of Simcha. That's nothing controversial. That's a Gemara. Mishnechnas Ada Marbin B'Simcha. It's an open Gemara. The only thing you can ask on that line, Mishnah Berurah, is why, Mishnah Berurah, are you writing that line? Who should write the line, Mishnechnas Ada Marbin B'Simcha? Not the Mishnah Berurah. Who should write it? The Shulchan Aruch. Why does Shulchan Aruch not codify it? That's a good question. Well, the rest, a very good question, but the rest of that line in the Gemara is Mishnechnas Adam Marbin B'Simcha, or Mishnechnas Av Mema'aten B'Simcha. Does the Shulchan Aruch bring down the second half of that line? Yes. So why do you bring one line and not the other? That's a fun question. So maybe your answer is the answer. And some do go in your way that, yeah, we don't go to Beis Din in that time, and we don't paint our house during that week. So there's tangible things, as opposed to Ada, be happy. It's vague. It's not tangible. So the halacha couldn't codify a specific act. Maybe. Anyways, Mishnah Berurah continues. We didn't hit our line yet. Now we are going to. And he says that if you have a Beis Din case with a guy, then do it in Ada, which is a practical thing. So why could the Shulchan mention it? Now here's the line. Seemingly an innocent, sweet line, but then think about it. Yecholim b'nei ir, the people of a city, Yecholim are able to litakein haskama uvecheirim alehem. They can make a takana, right? A new rule, best game with a haskama that we all agree on this, uvecheirim. And someone who doesn't follow it is going to be what? In cheirim. Alehem v'al habaim acharehem. Them and all future generations, la'asot Purim b'yom shenasa bo nes, to make a Purim on the day that a nes happened to them. Okay, sweet. So maybe Ofakim could think about this, where the whole South was ransacked. Not the whole South. A lot of the South was ransacked. It's hard to believe how many months ago. And Ofakim, Baruch Hashem, they did all right, considering what was going on around them. Had the famous story where the terrorists were in one of the houses, and for a whole bunch of hours, the mother over there just kept, it's a wacky story. I didn't believe it until someone said I was in the house with the mother, and she told us exactly what happened. It's a real story. So that's like miraculous. That's a miracle. So maybe the people in that town want to have a day and say, you know what, that as sad as this for all Klal Yisrael, we have to also thank Hashem for saving us, and we're going to make a day each year to remember it. So you can't make a new holiday. Mishnah Berurah is saying, yes, you can. So the Mishnah Berurah says that they can make this takana aleihem va'al habim acharehim, on them and all those who come, lasot Purim, to make their own Purim. The Yom Shenasa Bones. And then he gets into details. Umi Shenasa Bones Ba'adar. And it happened in Adar the Nes. And Venada Lo Supam, I am going to make a Purim in my town. But now, 2 years from now, Adar, there are two Adars. Will the real Adar please stand up? Which Adar? Kisheyavo Shnata Ibor, when the year comes and it's a double Adar, Tzarich Lasot Purim Ba'adar Shein. Here the Mishnah Berurah gives priority to the second Adar for some reason. Unless the miracle happened in a leap year, and that year what happened, it was on which Adar? Rishon. So then you'll always commemorate on Adar Rishon if there's two Adars to choose from. That's the Mishnah Berurah. Yes.
Like a benching Gomel, people do. It's not. It doesn't have to be an Adar. Whenever a Nes happens to them,
yes,
they make a party every
absolutely.
year. Is it the same idea?
Oh, you mean in addition, Berachas Gomel
right.
You do once.
Right.
You went ahead and major car accident. Could have been killed, and Baruch Hashem saved. We say Berachas Gomel. There are times that in addition to Berachas Gomel, we also are supposed to say what other bracha? Whenever you come back to the site, you're supposed to say, if you weren't there for 30 days, Sha'asa li nes b'makom hazeh. Isn't that fascinating bracha? Now, how come no one heard of it? Because you probably never heard of anyone that did make such a bracha. Because the post can decide what is nes. Birchas Agoma means I was in danger and God saved me. Okay, I was saved because all the airbags went off. And so instead of banging into the steering wheel at 100 kilometers an hour, I went into the bag. And that's derech hateva. That was a good development, right? The airbag, remember 30, we all remember when it came out, right? Back 50, 60, 70 years ago, there were no airbags, no seatbelts, no car seats. Like 5 kids are playing in the back seat, jumping around, running, playing tag, because the cars were so big. They're playing tag as you're driving on the highway. It was different. So, and as years develop, Baruch Hashem, that was definitely an area that we could talk about progress in mankind. Not too many areas that from 70 years ago till today, we could talk about progress, a lot of regression. Safety in cars is definitely an area of progress, Baruch Hashem. Excellent. And even not injured, yes, they say a Birchas Agomel every time they come out of Gaza. You're totally right. Totally right. They come out of Gaza, Birchas Agomel.
Is it appropriate to do it every year on that particular day?
Very good. So now, yeah, Birchas Agomel is one bracha when you come out of an accident. Anything that's dangerous, you can say that bracha we say frequently. But it has to be something dangerous. It can't be that I was driving and then 5 minutes ahead of me, no, it's got to be that you were in the accident. It can't just be I almost was in an accident. And then, but even that's got to be clarified. Maybe one day we should spend a shiur or two on that question. Exactly when should one say Birchas Agomel? It's not that black and white. Someone has a lot to say, but it's not simple. So you say Birchas Agomel, then Sha'asa Lines, many poskim say it has to be an outright miracle. The Mishnah Berurah gives us an example. You are in the desert and the person is about to die, and he all of a sudden there's no water, and out pops a well, like Be'er Miriam, a biblical level miracle, not a oasis, not a what's it called, mirage, not a mirage. It's real. So that biblical level miracle, that's not too frequent, right? So we don't really have the Rosh Hashanah Lines, but a Sudas Hodah every year, that's already something else, and that's our topic here. And so the Mishnah Berurah says that there is a mitzvah. And you can make a takana in the city. You can make a takana in the city. And a chayra, I mean, this is serious. You live in the city, you're part of this mitzvah of Purim. So it's a fascinating one. And Edie is right. Or didn't we have like in Frankfurt and other places, there are hundreds of Purims that were set up over the centuries. Hundreds. Not based on this Mishnah Berurah, because they predated this Mishnah Berurah. It's based on the Chassam Sofer, but it's not only the Chassam Sofer, because he was only 200 years ago. And there were Purims way before. It goes back to Maram Lashkar, who was a Rishon about 700 years ago. He spoke about this. The Pri Chadash argued with him and rejected this. And he says, no new holidays. Can't make new holidays. But Magen Avraham defended it. The Chassam Sofer defended it. And then the most famous posek of the 20th century, who's that? The Chafetz Chaim Mishnah Berurah, he quotes it. So it's clear. It's clear that we hold like that shita, that you can make a new holiday. What's not clear is what? What do you do on that holiday? What do you do? That's $1 million question, not clear. So elsewhere, the Mishnah Berurah talks about it, and he gives us little hints here and there. So, for example, he says on the very last siman of the Shulchan Aruch, the very last page of the Shulchan Aruch, which for me is in a very, very emotional page, because 5 years ago, give or take, when I was going through the whole Harabayas question, and I knew if I would go to Harabayas, that could get me into some trouble, just a little bit. And some people might say I'm chayav karis, and I may lose my jobs. And which I know Rav Reber, who is the rabbi of the Harabayas, when he started, he lost all his jobs. That was it. I knew it was taking a plunge, not just into the mikvah. So I knew this was a big deal. And I went to Kever Racha. I love Kever Racha. Racha really inspires me. to go. We all do acts of serious nefesh that I pick up someone along the way and I give them a lift and I give them a lift all the way to their home instead of dropping them off by my home. Wow, Danny Wright, you're amazing. That's great. And I went 3 minutes out of it. And that's amazing. How many do acts of serious nefesh your whole life you are going to pay for that? That's what Rachel did. So her whole life she's going to pay for sharing Leah with Yaakov, right? Unbelievable person. And she got hit over the head for it. It's like, what? So Kev is a very, very inspiring place for me. And I was there. And it was that year, like, Hashem, help me. I need to make a decision. On one hand, I hold my humble opinion. I have to go through sugyas. And when I learn a sugya, I have to paskin by what I think. And we've learned it for a year and a half in the shul every Shabbos afternoon. And that's it. And I'm pretty convinced it's the right thing to do. Not only is it not also like majority of poskim say, it is one of the greatest mitzvahs of our generation. And Hashem, so I'm not a spooky kind of guy. I'm not. But I don't know, for some reason, I opened the very last page of the Shulchan Aruch. And the Be'er Heitev, the last page of the Shulchan Aruch, in Orach Chaim, Beis Tifartenu b'mheira ya'amod. Our house of glory is going to come back soon. Uvayira also na'avod, and we will in awe serve you. Nachon yeh har habayis berosh harim adayat, and har bayit is going to be properly respected. It's not even connected to anything here in the Shulchan Aruch. Just for that reason, the Be'er Heitev finishes off his commentary with that. So anytime I open to this last page, I get goosebumps. Not saying because this was a divine sign, that's why I decided to go off. I started because of a year and a half of research, and that's why I go. I think it's a great mitzvah. I just felt this like a little kiss from Hashem. But anyways, what does the Mishnah Berurah say back to over here? The Mishnah Berurah says something fascinating. He says that when it's talking about the Kafrei Sadi Zion base, it says that Misher Lones, a nace happened to him, and he said, I'm going to do a Yom Mishtev, a Simcha, and he doesn't say Yom Purim. Here he says you could go ahead and make a Purim. Here he doesn't call it Purim. What does he call it? Yom, what are the words? Yom Mishtev a Simcha. You're going to make a day of a Mishtev and a Simcha. And he tells you which day to do it. Okay. He says he's doing it on the first Adar, which in our Mishnah Berurah it says the second. So which Adar is a real one? According to Mishnah Berurah, is a little confusing, but that's not our point. The Osa Suda Sha'osin B'Shvil Hanes, and that Suda that you make each year of that accident or whatever happened, or in Frankfurt, and something happened, there was a fire in the town and they were saved, or the terrorists surrounded every town and somehow this woman kept them at bay, whatever it is, and we were saved. That Suda that you have is called the Sudat Mitzvah. Sudat Hoda'ah, it's a Sudat Mitzvah. Person makes a neder, I don't eat in any Suda, only Sudas Mitzvah. That's a Sudas Mitzvah. He makes a neder, I'm fasting the 10 days over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to fast for 10 days. And one of the days happens to come out where you're supposed to have your Sudas Mitzvah, the Suda Hoda'ah to remember the name. That's a Sudas Mitzvah, knocks out the fast, make up the fast another day. It's a Sudas Mitzvah. So we don't have a lot of information what we do on that day, but we do have the concept of the Sudas Mitzvah. Yeah.
What about on someone's yard site when you make a Suda? Where does that come in? And
that's a good one. That's a good one. I'll tell you something funny. I am not an expert in the Shulchan Aruch, but if you'd ask me, Danny Myers, what halach is repeated the most throughout the 4 sections of the Shulchan Aruch, I would tell you the mitzvah to fast on the yard site. And what halach is keep the least? That one. It's mentioned the most. It's mentioned in Yoredeya several times by Hilchos Avelos, about a yurtzeit and fasting on the veils. It's mentioned in Hilchos Nedarim, when you make a neder on the fast. It's mentioned in Hilchos Adar. What if the first Adar is a yurtzeit? The second, which day do you fast on the yurtzeit? It's about a dozen times throughout all the 4 sections of Shulchan Aruch. Again, again. Fasting yurtzeit, fast on the yurtzeit, fast on the yurtzeit. What do we all do? Eat and make a party on the yurtzeit. We're funny people, aren't we? So anyways, how did that happen? Because we're all a bunch of wimps. And if I fast, I'm not going to learn. I'm not going to daven. I'm going to be counting the day down the whole day. And therefore, it's not a chova. It's a mitzvah to fast, not an obligation. And therefore, I'm going to just make a wasted day. And therefore, the minute I came about not to fast, and the Rav Soloveitchik on his famous Yurtzeit Shiurim, 4 or 5 hours Shiurim, he gave in memory of his father, fasted all day. But we don't. My father's Yurtzeit, Zecher Tzaddik V'rach, was right after Yom Kippur. So the minute to fast is not on days you don't say Tachana. But if not, I would at least believe that I would do a half a day. So something, whatever. So then it turned into the opposite of the Shulchan Aruch, where we go ahead and make a tikkun, we get people to say brachos, aliyah, and the Shema. So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. People do it in the shul. I don't say anything against it. Just you should just know the origin is the opposite. But whatever, that's it. That's how it developed.
You can invite people up to fast with you.
Yes, that's going to be real popular. Anyways, yeah, don't wait for them to come. That's my advice. So that is a machlokes in the Shulchan Aruch when the real Adar is. Some say first, some say second. I tell people that since we are wimps and we don't do the real fast anymore, so do both. Because what do you do in a Yurtzeit? You light a candle. So light a candle on both. You learn Mishnah, do Mishnahs on both. Someone says Kaddish, do Kaddish on both. It's an easy area to be machmir. So I tell people both, and I can't do both. I just tell me one. So the Ramah says the first one. Shulchan Aruch says the second. Anyway, so I tell people ideally both, but if not, just do the first, like the Ramah. Okay. Anyway, so just to summarize this fascinating sugya that we have over here, that the concept of making a new holiday goes back centuries. It's been done hundreds of times. The details of what to do is not clear. All we know is it's the Yom Mishta V'Simcha. The meal you do on that day is a Sudat Mitzvah. Is anything mentioned about saying Hallel? Not in these classical poskim. It's not mentioned. Of course, what's controversial about everything we said? Nothing except for 2 words. When you apply all this to what holiday that we set up recently? Yom Haazmaut. Oh, wow. And when people say, so if someone challenges Yom Haazmaut, Hakamat Medina is not a bracha. Okay, so obviously we're coming from different hashkafa philosophical backgrounds where you don't hold this a bracha and I hold this a bracha. Or they say Yom Haazmaut, very nice, but that was the day we declared the state and we started a war. So that's not a good day to remember. Maybe the end of the war is a better day. That's an interesting question. But someone, and someone says that we lost tens of thousands of people with the war. And it's not a halachic. Okay, so you have to get into all the questions of, is this a bracha that you want to thank Hashem for? But that's a hashkafa question you have to define first. But once you say that this is a bracha, a nes from Hashem that I want to thank him for, and I want to make my own Purim, and make my own holiday, if someone just says, you can't make new holidays, that's just not true. That is not a true point. Because it's clear in the Mishnah Berurah, the holiest posek, the most well-known, renowned, and respected post of the 20th century, clearly holds by, because I'm so fair, who holds by the Magen Avraham, who holds by Ramal Shaker, that you can make a new holiday. The details, that's where we get into a lot of fun. But for sure, having a Suda on that day is a Suda's mitzvah. How are the details? Who can make up such a thing? You don't need a Sanhedrin. These were all made without Sanhedrin. Mishmur doesn't know anything about a Sanhedrin. He says a town. So to someone to just say, oh, there's no concept of making new holidays today, that's just not true. The details, what's the expression? The devil is in the details. That's where it gets complicated. And this is all local shtetls. Can we make a holiday for the whole Am? Ooh, wow, that's not written here. So maybe that you can't do. That's a fun question. We'll get closer to Yom Haazmaut. We'll talk about the different sheets.
Liberation from the camps.
Liberation. Someone knows his family, and then the family set up when that family was liberated from the camp. The day, to go ahead and set every year that on that day, that would be a Sudas mitzvah for sure. The day to give tzedakah, a day to learn, and whatever one does, we have to learn the details of what one does on such a day. But yes, absolutely.
The hostage release
that's a delicate one because with hostage release comes a lot of other prices. But let's say the family themselves, they're not looking at the whole macro; they're just focusing on the micro. For them, it's a holiday. You're right. That's a very good point. A family gets their loved one home, whether someone is saved, where there's no price that we pay, just unbelievable awe of these holy chayalim and the army and everyone that just set up that operation. It was an heavy level, not Entebbe was a different league, but it was high up to that operation. Chas v'shalom, the anti-Bibi people say anything good about Bibi. So, but it was an amazing operation that they ran and they oversaw. Not forever. Yes, very good point. Yeah, that's an interesting question. That gets into the question of Oved Risha'im Rina, dying, being happy when a Russia dies. Yes, very good point.